Hello viewers, there are some days where you end up wasting a lot of your precious time and hours on a certain race, and this was one of those such occasions. Back in the Ferrari for the second round of the Manufacturers' Cup, there'd be lots of things to trip me over, including very mixed conditions for this race.
Must be the water.
And on that note, we'll be trying to avoid any poor Ferrari strategies throughout. Now in the previous race I actually had a good result, 254 points for round 1. You might have watched the video. It was actually a very good way to start off the season, but for round 2 there were many things that were going to trip me over and prove to be a pitfall. Now I had 3 attempts to try to get this race right, but unfortunately I jinxed myself quite early on. Well, hopefully I don't have to do all 3 time slots today. What an incredibly foolish thing to say so early on. Obviously that was not going to go to plan. So let's jump into the first of the 3 attempts as we have a look at the qualifying. Now these big sausages here at Dragon Trail Gardens, not very forgiving, and definitely sausages you don't really want to be riding. Now on kind of 2 occasions there I do. Did it help my lap time? Not really, but the lap time wasn't actually too bad. Crossing the line, actually going pole position with a 31.8, can definitely go quicker than that, into the low 31s ideally. It was good enough for pole at the time, but eventually it was good enough for 4th place. Now take a look at the track, you can see it's very dry. And as we swap over into the race, you can see that very quickly it is not dry, because that is, well, I guess it must be the water. So as spoken about before, it was going to be a wet race. We swap over to the intermediates. That's quite an important thing to note for later on in the video, as we get that right now. Now taking a look at this, 4th on the grid, pretty decent. We can go from there with certain Mr. Max Verstappen right behind us on the grid, quite ominously. And then towards the back of the pack actually, I noticed that some of the cars were ghosted out. Now this is something that doesn't normally happen. It's kind of a weird occurrence. So I'm not sure exactly what was going on there, but some cars ghosted and the servers have not been up to scratch in the last couple of weeks, I think it's fair to say. Now it says I'm 5th there, so I'm not sure exactly what happened, because I am actually 4th. And you might notice the guy in the lead is beginning to pull away already. So a very strange occurrence here where we're meant to have a rolling start, but the top 3 and then me are about to pull away before we're meant to. So as you can see, my countdown timer is now beginning at quite a higher speed than what is normal. And as we just pause it there at the start, you can see the top 3 and myself, so the top 4 effectively, have already begun quite early, and then the remaining 10 drivers are just a bit further back. It says I'm 5th as well, when I'm definitely 4th. There's only 3 people in front of me. So something has gone completely wrong here. I have really no idea what is up with the servers at the moment. But now we have a mountain to climb, essentially, because the cars in front of us obviously got a massive gap. As we go through the chicane, I move up to 4th, and then take a look back, take a look at the gaps. I'm 5 seconds away from the car in front and 13.5 seconds away from the lead. So this is good and bad. Obviously good in the sense that I'm a bit further away from the pack behind, but bad obviously in the sense that now it's going to be incredibly difficult to try to catch up with any of the cars in front. Now someone here says good luck bro, and I perhaps needed a bit more good luck because it wasn't quite working out for me. I think this was more of a bad thing than a good thing. I was actually very hopeful in this race that we could actually win it. I felt like my pace was decent, and so being 13.5 seconds away from the lead just really didn't help my cause at all. And I suppose in the Manufacturer Series, it's kind of win or bust. You just really want to go for those top points, otherwise you're just going to go again. So 4th place, whilst it is a decent result, we want to be winning ideally, as the gap did come down to below 10 seconds briefly. So I was going in the right direction, I was gaining actually, and actually making some inroads towards the front as the 2 of the top 3 go into the pit lane. Now this is a really tricky phase of the race, because as you can see, the intermediate tyre beginning to die of death, really struggling, as you can quite clearly see a dry line forming. And in order to keep the inter tyre alive, you have to drive into the wet patches quite often, but there is more grip on the dry patch, so it's an interesting scenario to be in. This would also spell quite a lot of danger for when you exit the pit lane, having swapped over to the slick tyres, because if you go onto the wet patch, that is pretty much a death sentence in this game. So as we come into the pit lane, we're going to swap over to the medium tyre, which will last us towards the end of the race, and then it's going to be the treacherous couple of laps of survival and not touching any of the wet patches at all. This is a really, really difficult phase of the race. It's probably one of the most difficult things you can do in Gran Turismo, just trying to drive at a good pace whilst not touching any of the wet patches. So we remain in fourth, about 11 seconds off the lead here. So I've gained 3 seconds, or about 2.5 seconds from where we started. And, you know, that's good, but it's just not going to be enough, really. And unfortunately, that's just the way that things have been going on Gran Turismo 7 with the shoddy servers as of late. As we head down towards the hairpin, things looking okay, just again trying to drive within the lines. Bit of a moment there, but nothing too crazy, just driving within ourselves, not pushing 100%, just to make sure that we just don't deviate from the line. And I really suppose that this first lap out of the pit lane is a lap for learning, and we learn exactly where the line is and then try to repeat it for the remaining laps of the race. Bit of a moment there on the curb, got to be really careful with the curbs, which aren't always dry. Now by lap 16, I was catching up actually. Take a look at the radar quite closely, or the map. It's quite difficult to tell, but the guy in third there, the one in front of me, does have a bit of a moment, and the gap actually comes down to 4.8 to about 4.3 very quickly. So you can see there, one moment can lose you a lot of time. You can lose half a second very quickly. You can lose a lot more than that. However, it wasn't quite enough. I did catch up quite a lot. As you can see, the two cars were well within sight, maybe about 3 seconds up the road, and I was about 9 seconds away from the lead. So I think it was a good performance. It's just very difficult to really show that because I was on my own for the entirety of the race. Courtesy, of course, of the weird start glitch thing. The only good news, I suppose, was hitting 1,024,000 subscribers, so thank you to all of you. Crossing the line in fourth, decent result, but again, we want to go for the win. I decided, therefore, to swap over to a Swift, or a Taylor Swift livery, but unfortunately there weren't any for the Ferrari 458. And so we had to settle for the Verstappen.com livery instead, which does actually look rather fantastic. So we're hoping that Mr. Verstappen's team can propel us to some sort of victory this time around in the second race. Now, in qualifying, this is one where I just really threw it away. I did a lot of practice in between the races. There's about an hour gap between the Manufacturers' Cup time slots, and so you have plenty of time to kind of do some laps. And I was practicing the dry qualifying as we have here. And unfortunately, on my first occasion, hitting the sausage, the forbidden sausage, the car really does not respond to that very well, doing a wheelie across the grass before hitting barrier on the other side. Well, that failed, didn't it? It did indeed fail quite drastically, and so we had to go again. You only really get 2 attempts at a lap here in this qualifying session, such is the shortness of it. With the pole position time at a 31.2, that's a lap time that I think I could do. In fact, the G-Stars guy who is in pole position was in one of my practice servers, and we were kind of very close. And so that's the kind of area I'm aiming for. However, being the absolute noob I am, another moment then, just once you drop your right-hand wheels beyond the side of that curb, it just does not react very well. You see my reaction to that is the most deadpan face you've ever seen. And so, unfortunately, this time around, we're going to be starting from the back of the pack. Now, you might have noticed as well, actually, G-Stars was on pole position, but he's disappeared from the pack. We only have 15 drivers now instead of 16. So, just some really weird occurrences, people leaving races. I started 5th in the last race, even though I was 4th. Really not sure what is going on. But despite all of that, I was actually quite looking forward to this. Fighting through from the back of the pack in an attempt to salvage a good result after a poor qualifying. So once again, the race begins in the wet. Diving up the inside here, gaining a position already. We can go nice and aggressive, courtesy as well of the drying up glitch. So as the track dries up, the cars towards the front have a slight disadvantage whereby they are driving on a slightly wetter track. And so over the course of a 20-lap race, the cars behind can tend to gain quite a lot. Looking up the inside here, quite a bit of a dive bomb towards the apex of the corner. I'm going to park it on the inside. try to salvage this position, as the Nissan GTR is a massive moment. We're going to throw up the inside here, be really committed, very aggressive. We do actually run this guy a little bit wide onto the grass. Managed to keep under control. I've gained 3 positions, so this has actually been a pretty good start so far, and hopefully we can continue in this vein of form, moving our way through the pack. As I come through here though, there is going to be yet more disconnection problems, because as we round up the quadruple right-hander onto the back straight, unfortunately, boom, there is the end of our race. An unexpected error has occurred. CE 210381, the infamous message. Why would you do that? What is this error? I have no idea what this error is. It's just obviously something that happens from time to time on Gran Turismo. And so this left me with one final opportunity. Would I rise to the occasion, or would I let it slip? By this point, obviously, knees weak, arms are sweaty, and there was just vomit all over my sweater already. It was just insane what was going on. The pressure was building. Could we finally get this one right? Because I think the first 2, to be honest, I think, yes, some of it was my fault, but some of to be fair, a lot of it wasn't, because getting disconnected is not much you can do about that. And then the first race, leaving the start grid with a massive gap to the cars in front, again, not much you can do about that. That's kind of a problem with the game. We have another good luck message here, and I really need these good luck messages because, well, clearly the good luck has not been on our side today at all. This is fast turning into one of those videos. I did one on GT Sport where I ended up wasting 6 hours around Blue Moon Speedway, and unfortunately this is turning into that very quickly. A wasted session where you end up not really achieving too much. So this is a qualifying lap that we're looking on board with here, and actually one of the better ones that I did. My first qualifying lap was a 31.8 in the first qualifying session towards the beginning of the video, but I knew that I could go into the low 31s, so that's what I was aiming for. Rounding out the final corner, it was a good lap, solid lap, decent pace. Up to the line we go. It's going to be a 31.3. Good enough pole position at the time. And eventually that was good enough for 3rd on the grid. And you might look at that. 5 Ferraris in the top 5. The 296 and the 458. Pretty well balanced actually. Quite a rare thing in Manufacturers' Cup to have 2 cars of roughly equal stature and performance. Now this is where I made my worst mistake. As you can see, I grabbed my phone, the tool of distraction in the modern world. And as we go through this interlude, I was distracted by my phone. And as you can see in the chat, everyone was telling me to change my tyres, because obviously the start of the race is wet. You need wet tyres. I did no such thing, before eventually realising the errors of my ways. Oh, I didn't change my tyres. Oh my god, that's the most dumb thing I've ever done. This was pointless, the whole thing. There's nothing I can do. I can just drive around really slowly for a lap. I'll be miles at the back. That catastrophic error had sealed my fate. There's not really much you can do from here. I'm on the slick tyre. I'm going to have to drive around for a lap before pitting. I'm going to lose a lot of time on this lap, a lot of time pitting. So at best, I'm going to be half a minute away from everyone else at the back of the pack. There was going to be no such mistakes though, because I made all these other drastic mistakes. I turned across another car, trying to get out of the way. It only turned out to be more of a mistake. And I only made it worse in the end. So it was just a tragic, stupid mistake, and one of those things that you can do just by not concentrating properly. And I think these words here very much summarise my thoughts to everyone in that race. I can't really make a video about that anyway. Like it would just be a kind of a pointless video. I mean, you guys can tell me if this is a pointless video or not. I suppose it isn't. It shows you that things can go badly. It doesn't always go to plan. I've got plenty of races on this channel which go well and are amazing, but some days it doesn't always go according to plan. Now, there was one thing I could do here, and that was log on to my United States account and go again. Now, with Ferrari signed up to, I wanted to kind of mimic the same team just to see if I could continue with Ferrari. I would have to wait another 3 hours for the first race, because obviously the races in the Americas are a lot later. And so this would obviously add to my woes. In the meantime, I thought, you know what, my ratings are quite low on this account. AB, I need to get that to AS ideally. So I jumped into this race. Now this was clearly a grave error on my part, because it wasn't going to really go to plan. As we start towards the back of the pack, I didn't really have time to qualify, so I just jumped in. I thought, you know what, let's just have a clean race. The main thing is to improve our sportsmanship rating, more so than the driver rating. So the position isn't so consequential here, more so the sportsmanship and the way that I cleanly go about the race. Now the first big cataclysmic error was here, really, because there's a car wide, as you can see. I'm going to slow it down slightly. And as he rejoins, I'm just thinking, okay, I'll go to the right as he rejoins. Unfortunately, the car actually just tightens up his line, slows down a bit, and I go into the back of them. It's just one of those things where you think, goodness me, could this really go any worse? I was hoping that that wouldn't happen, obviously. It did. It's unfortunate. We have a collision. Didn't get a penalty for it, but it did slow us down. We did get some bumper damage. And then another little thing here, bit of a concertina effect as the car spins. More front bumper damage, remaining towards the back of the pack. No penalty there, but we are colliding with people, and it's not really a good sign overall, I would say. Now into the hairpin here, lap number 4. Things beginning to build up. A couple of cars wide there as we gain another position. Up against the Subaru here. Now this is where the race is about to end, and you might not guess why. But as we head towards the final chicane here at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, we're going to have a slight bump from behind, a really slight one, but it's enough to kind of push me beyond the apex. So I decided, you know what, let's just cut the corner, let's resume the position that we were in, and let's just continue racing. But no, the stewards were deciding that that was not going to be a thing that you can do today. And you can just see how I felt about that. Because it was quite interesting, actually, because this was one of the races that I did earlier in the week. And you might notice on the radar, one of the cars behind actually rides a bit of contact, and as a result decides to cut the chicane quite egregiously there and overtake about 4 of us, and actually not get penalised for it. And this is what it looked like from his point of view. So he's deliberately riding the contact before then cutting the chicane, not making any attempt to slow down to regain the position that he was in originally, actually gaining 4 positions as a result. And so when you see examples like this, it's quite frustrating, therefore, when you receive a very genuine and light tap. I don't think anyone meant anything sinister there. I decided, you know, let's cut, let's just resume the position, try to be a sportsman, and in my mind that was being sportsman-like, but obviously it wasn't quite deemed worthy by the stewards. I think this is one of those situations where it's best that I just walk away and come back fresh another time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.